guys, welcome or welcome back to my channel. If you're new, my name is Laura. I do knitting and crocheting videos here on YouTube where I mainly do inspired or recreations of popular TV shows and movies. Most of the time they end up being animated media, but that's not always the case. So today I wanted to talk about my favorite fiber art supplies. Now, just as a disclaimer, this isn't an exhaustive list of everything that I use. This isn't even a good guide for what beginners should buy. These are just items that have worked well for me and what I really like. I wouldn't even necessarily say that these are my favorite supplies of all time, because a lot of these supplies I've gotten throughout the years, and when I was getting back into crocheting and knitting in 2020 and 2021, I didn't really go out of my way to buy the most expensive tools, but regardless of the quality of these tools, this is just what works well for me. I didn't even have a lot of these supplies when I first started crocheting and knitting when I was 9 years old. So if you're a beginner, don't feel like you need to go out of your way to buy all of these things. Okay, the first thing we're going to talk about are crochet hooks. I just use normal metal crochet hooks. This is literally just a really cheap set that I bought on Amazon, and the sizes of these hooks range from, it looks like 2mm to 10mm, and for the amount of hooks that you get, I think it's a really good price. I know a lot of people that crochet don't necessarily like these, mainly for the grip. I definitely notice this when I crochet a lot, but my wrists sometimes end up hurting. For me, this isn't really due to ergonomics of the hook. It's actually just because I crochet a lot. I know people that hold their crochet hooks like this, like in their fist, and I know in that case, sometimes these metal hooks can be kind of uncomfortable or cause pain after a while. But for me, I hold my crochet hooks like a pencil, and holding it like this, I don't find any pain from the way that the crochet hook is made. I have tried other crochet hooks. I have this plastic one and this bamboo one, and I just find that the yarn slips off a lot easier on the metal crochet hooks, and I've just enjoyed using those. Honestly, in the future, I could definitely see myself investing in metal crochet hooks that do have grips. I think in the long run, it is probably better for your hands. But in terms of what I need my crochet hooks to do now, these do the job, and I've never had an issue with them. So I'm not that picky when it comes to crochet hooks, but I am a bit more picky about my knitting needles. In general, I really like using bamboo or wooden needles. If I have to pick between them, it's usually bamboo. These are the needles that I really like. I can't remember the brand of these needles. I'll put it here on the screen. Again, I bought these on Amazon like back in 2020, 2021. I just love the feeling of knitting with bamboo. It has the right amount of grip that I want it to have when I'm knitting. Sometimes when I'm knitting with metal needles, the yarn will slip off very easily, and just because of the texture of bamboo needles, it's a little bit, I wouldn't want to say sticky, but it's a bit rougher than, you know, average metal needles. So I really like using these. I also prefer circular needles over double pointed needles or straight needles. I do a lot of work in the round, so for me, circular needles are a necessity. But even when I'm not, it's a lot easier to knit in the flat with circular needles because the majority of the fabric sits on the wire, and there's a lot less weight that's put onto my arms since it's distributed across the wire. So these for me were definitely a splurge. I bought these. They have worn down quite a bit since I've gotten them, so I have thought about investing in a nice pair of wooden knitting needles, especially interchangeable needles. But for now, these needles are my favorite. And now we're kind of getting into more of the accessories for fiber arts crafts. The first one are stitch markers, and I feel like I'm going to surprise people by saying what my favorite stitch markers are. I am going to be completely honest. I really like just normal plastic stitch markers. They come in a variety of colors, which is really nice when you need to match panels up, or if you're doing work in the round, you need to know where the increases are, so that's great. But they're also just like really cheap, and I'm not scared of losing these. I can't tell you how many stitch markers I've lost in my life, probably more than I can actually think of. I have like nicer stitch markers that my friend gave me for my birthday / Christmas, and while I love these and these are really cute, I literally only use these for Instagram pictures or if I'm doing like filming a reel or something. I'm just so terrified of losing those stitch markers that regardless, I always just gravitate towards my trusty dusty plastic ones. And these also came in a set with a bunch of other crocheting and knitting accessories. So you can get a bunch of these with like very bare minimum fiber art supplies that you'll need. A lot of kits will have these. Yeah, like I have a bag full of these, and I honestly used to have 2 separate different stitch markers that I got from like 2 different kits, and this is all I have left of it now because I lose them all the time. One thing that you'll definitely need to have if you're getting started with crocheting and knitting is a darning needle. There's a lot of different types of darning needles. You can get them oftentimes in sets of varying lengths and sizes, but for whatever reason, this specific needle is my favorite. I got this needle from a Wool in the Gang kit a really long time ago, and I love it because it's such a short darning needle. So a lot of the times I'll find myself playing yarn chicken a little bit and, you know, having very short ends to weave in. Having a shorter darning needle is really nice for that. On top of it, it's not quite as blunt as other darning needles that I've seen. I don't know if you can see that. And the sharpness is really nice for thinner yarn that I'm weaving in. It's just a bit easier to get into the smaller holes and stitches and stuff. So this is my favorite darning needle. I've never gone out of my way to just buy darning needles, so I'm sure you can buy like a set of metal ones that have one that's kind of like this, but for whatever reason the Wool in the Gang one is really nice. Okay, the next thing on my list is my embroidery scissors, and this is definitely not a necessity. Of course, you're gonna need scissors when you're crafting, but you do not need to have craft-specific scissors for it. You can buy like really cheap school scissors. Those will work completely fine, but I will not lie, I really love my embroidery scissors. These are so cute. I bought them in Amazon, again, a really long time ago. And I'm gonna be honest, I got these because of Over the Garden Wall. In one of the scenes, I think her name is, oh, I can't remember her name. It's going to bother me. I'll put her name up. I'll like show a picture of what she looks like on the screen here. But this character, who's like a witch, has these scissors, and they're so cute. And I just, you know, capitalism really popped off that day because I bought these. Okay, this next item also definitely not a necessity, but I really enjoy having them. It's these needle stoppers. Now these ones are just the really cheap ones that you can buy at Michael's, but I've seen such cute ones. I've seen ones that are like strawberries or like animals, and they're so cute. And I also like these for when I try, you know, my garments on and I'm too lazy to transfer the whole thing to, you know, a piece of scrap yarn. You can just put these on the ends of your needles, try on your garment that way, even though that's not always accurate. I just get lazy sometimes and don't want to transfer it between my needles and a piece of scrap yarn. Okay, now we're kind of getting into more of the yarn part of the supplies. One is a ball winder. This is one that I got, again, off of Amazon for pretty cheap. You can get much nicer ones. I've seen wooden ones that look beautiful, but in terms of like what it does, they're all the same. I've only ever used this ball winder and I've had no problems with it. I actually have a really funny story with this ball winder. So before I was buying hanks of yarn, I didn't really understand what the purpose of a ball winder was, but I just loved the look of cakes. And I bought this thinking that I was going to cake up all of my yarn and make it look really nice. That didn't actually end up happening because I have so much yarn, but I just thought this was a really cool contraption, and it made me feel like a real fiber artist. It made me feel like a pro. But the part that's really funny about this is that eventually I did start buying a lot more natural fiber yarns that oftentimes comes in a hank, and and I didn't have a Swift. So I would do a couple things. One, I would either force whatever friend or roommate I was currently with and make them hold my hank as I spun up my yarn. Two, I would use my knees and put the yarn between my knees and wind it that way. Or three, what would usually happen is I would wind up the hank into a ball in my hands, and then from that ball wind it up with the ball winder. Was it incredibly unnecessary sometimes and more time consuming than it needed to be? Maybe. I don't know, but I had cakes and that's all I cared about. Like, all of the hanks that I had could definitely just be knit directly from the ball that I wound up. I didn't care. I liked using my ball winder. It wasn't until a couple months ago that I finally got a Swift. I actually got this as a birthday / Christmas present from my friend Zeal. So Zeal, if you're watching this, I love you. But oh my god, why didn't I buy this sooner? This saves so much time and I don't have to force anyone to hold my yarn for me. This is fantastic. Oh my god, in the camera, it looks like I'm holding a bat. I have no idea where my friend bought this. I assume online because she shipped it to me directly through the seller. I highly recommend, if you are buying hanks, to buy both of these, not just the ball winder. Why you would have a ball winder and not a Swift ever, I don't know, but now I have both and I can save so much time not sitting there winding up yarn. The last thing that I'll talk about is, of course, yarn. How are you gonna crochet or knit without yarn? Now, I'm someone that has used acrylic yarn and enjoyed using it, but in general, I just love using natural fiber yarn, specifically wool. Now, it is not in my budget to buy really expensive, nice wool yarn. I cannot afford that, unfortunately. I need to eat and pay rent. But I have found a lot of really great wool yarns that work for me, that aren't itchy and they don't bleed. For me, a brand that has worked really well is the Cascade yarn brand. This one I'm holding here is the superwash yarn that they have. I've used other types of yarn from them too, and I've had great experiences knitting with them. It's soft, it's not itchy, it's really nice to work up. Is it like the softest wool yarn that you'll ever feel? Definitely not. But I think for what's in my budget, and especially for the amount of colors that they have, I really like Cascade yarn. Anyways, in the comments, let me know what your favorite fiber art supplies are. I'm curious if there's something that I left out on my list that's like your top favorite supply. Or honestly, if you just have good recommendations for me, I would love to know. I love looking at different art supplies in general, not just with fiber arts. And some of your recommendations might end up on my Christmas list, so we'll see. Also, let me know if there's anything on my list that's like an absolute no for you. Honestly, I could see my crochet hooks being one of those things. Obviously, there's a lot of people who are much more experienced knitters and crocheters, so I would love to, discover more. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye!